We'll call the meeting to order. Welcome everybody, and I know that it's the holiday season, so we welcome you and glad that you could spend a little bit of an evening with us. So we'll look at our agenda and have an approval of that agenda.
Motion to approve.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Do we have any citizens' comments, Lisa? Okay, take a look at the minutes that were for the November 22nd, 2022 board meeting. They were sent to us previous to the meeting as well. Entertain a motion to approve.
Motion to approve. Second.
Okay, so Amy and
You guys
then
motion.
all in favor, say aye. Opposed, same sign. Okay, now we move on the agenda. We have audited financial report for the year ended of June 30 of 2022. And I believe Keith, you're going to take the lead on that.
Well, I'm gonna take the lead and just to introduce our guest, but as you know, we get elected also every year. We up with Rebecca Baker, who what's your honor today? You're a partner, a shareholder.
We call it shareholder.
Shareholder, but she's a big wig now. At KPM, they have audited us for a few years. They audit a number of other community colleges in the state. So it's our report card, and so we'll let her share with you what she's done and what we see here. You all have a copy, so you can ask her any questions you like.
Hey, well, thank you very much for that, Steve. And you guys should have a copy of the report if you'd like to follow along. We'll start on page 3. And like he said, we're KPM CPAs, we're out of Springfield, and we audit 6 community colleges in the state, which I think we're the firm that audits the most of them. We do have a lot of experience doing this, and this book, I don't know, it's 50 or 60 pages long, and it doesn't look like much, but a lot of work goes into it on our part and the college's part. And we come into contact with a lot of people, and I think Diane and I were just talking a couple weeks ago that the college was still making entries to make sure that information was right for different grants and things like that. So there's a lot of work that goes into this book, even though not very many people read it, but I will kind of touch on the highlights tonight if you'd like to follow along. So on page 3 is our independent auditor's report. Really the whole reason you have an audit is for us to issue an opinion on your financial statements. And we perform our audit to determine if the college's financial statements are presented fairly in all material respects in accordance with generally accepted accounting principles, and then we issue an opinion based on our audit results. So we look at a lot of invoices, receipts, we confirm your bank balances, and we send letters to the attorney. We do all kinds of things, and we have to be able to gather enough information to say that we believe these numbers are materially correct. We don't say they're perfect because we'd be here all year auditing. But anyway, the college has received an unmodified or clean opinion, which is the best opinion that you can get. So congratulations. And one thing I wanted to point out on this first page, if you go about 3/4 of the way down, you'll see a paragraph that says the emphasis of a matter. And the college had to adopt a new accounting standard this last year, it's GASB 87, and it's called leases. And GASB changed the definition of what a lease is. So you used to have an operating lease and a capital lease. Capital lease meant you took ownership of the asset at the end of the term. An operating lease would be like your classroom space, or if you rented equipment and you just made an annual payment or a monthly payment, but it was not your asset. Well, GASB decided that they thought it was important for you to show those right to use assets on your financial statements. So you guys do have, I think 4 leases where you are the lessee for classroom space in different places. So now there is a lease, a right to use asset on your financial statements, just like a capital asset, and a lease liability for the terms of that agreement. So that's something new. And then you are also a lessor. In February, I believe you started renting out property to another company, and someone's paying you. So now you have a lease receivable, and you have what are called deferred lease inflows, and that's the revenue that you will recognize over the term of that agreement. So that is something new this year that you, I'll point that out as we get to the financial statement. Okay, next we'll go to page 7. Page 7 is where the management's discussion and analysis portion of the report begins. This is required by the Governmental Accounting Standards Board. We do not audit this section. But it is required. If you don't read anything else in this book, I would say these 7 pages give a really good financial overview of what happened to the college during the year. So I do encourage you to read this section, and Keith has some commentary at the end of the section, which I learned so much information when I read it. So yeah, I really encourage you to read that. It kind of talks about some of the funding that's going on at the state level and kind of what your future budget and that sort of thing is for fiscal year 2030. So I do encourage you to read this section. Next, we'll go to page 15. So page 15 and 16 are where the financial statements begin. I'm not going to go over these financial statements. We consider the college and the foundation one unit when we present your audited financial statements. I think it's probably more meaningful for you guys to kind of see those separated out. So we have combining statements at the end of the audit, and I will go through those with you briefly. But I wanted to point these out that this is a combined financial position, and it does include the foundation and the college. Next, we'll go to page 21. Page 21 is where the notes to the financial statements begin. The notes are about 30 pages long. They are a required part of the financial statements. We do issue our opinion on the notes. And the notes just give more detailed information of amounts that you'll see on the financial statements. So the notes will give more information on the significant accounting policies. If you see investments on the financial statements, the notes will tell you what types of investments that the college is holding, future debt service, retirement information, et cetera. So I do encourage you to read the notes in conjunction with the financial statement. Okay, next we'll go to page 46. And page 46 is where the combining financial statements are. So on page 46, you can see that there's a column for the college, for the foundation, and then an elimination column. That elimination column is just transactions that happen between the college and the foundation. So we get rid of that activity so it's not duplicated. So the first column, I'm just going to go down the college real quick. Total assets for the college were about 62.1 million at the end of June 30, 22. This was an increase of about 10.5 million. About 5.4 million of that was in cash and investment increase. And then you can kind of see the lease receivable that is booked. And you have a current portion and a long-term portion. That's about 864,000. With the new GASB 87, that lease receivable, they make you discount that to the present value. So there's now an interest and principal component of that money that you're receiving annually. And then under non-current assets, you'll see lease assets, and those are new. That's the total amount, the 3.5 million. That's the amount that you're going to pay over the term of the agreements for the classroom space. And I think there's some copy equipment that's in that amount. And so that is the main increases in your assets. Okay, if we turn the page to page 47, we'll go over the liabilities. Total liabilities were 19.8 million. This was a decrease of about 16.1 million from the previous year. The majority of that decrease is because of the net pension liability. And that number went from 24.2 million down to 5.6 million. The net pension liability is based on an actuary study, and Retirement releases that information every year. And it's based on June 30, 2021 numbers. And that's why that liability decreased so much. And it actually, I don't know, we talk about it every year, but the net pension liability and the OPEB, which is the health insurance that retirees are allowed to be on, those typically have negative impacts on the college's financial statement. But this year, because of the investment return was based on 6/30/21, there was actually a positive impact on the financial statements, almost 2.7 million, I believe. So total net position of the college at year end was 31.5 million. This is a $9.7 million increase over the previous year. Okay, if we turn the page to page 48, this is a combining statement of revenues, expenses, and changes in net position. So basically your income statement. Total operating revenues for the college were 26.8 million. This was an increase of 5.6 million from the previous year. And most of that was in state and local grants. Total expenses were 44.6 million. This was an increase of 646,000. And if you go down to non-operating revenues, you see state appropriation of 7.8 million. State appropriations increased about $716,000 from the previous year. Non-exchange grant revenue, that's your Pell revenue and all of the HERF funding that the college receives, was about 14.9 million. That increased about 1.5 million from the previous year. You have county property tax revenue of 4.1 million, gifts and donations of 1.2 million. And then a loss in the fair value of investments of about 88,000 net. So the change in net position, you see at the bottom, is 9.7 million. So the college really had a pretty large increase to your net position, which your net position is your assets less your liabilities. Does anyone have any questions over the financial information? Okay, next we'll move on to page 61. One of the more time-consuming parts of our audit, this is definitely. Oh, okay.
Was it the June 1, July 1, 2021 valuation on the pension? As we go into the next year, since we're going to have a July 1, 2022, we can expect to see that number go. Direction.
I think that's probably going to be the case.
Okay.
Keith and I were talking, they released that information recently. And retirement's always a year behind on how they do their evaluation for that net pension liability. But I do think that's going to be the case. It had a positive impact this year for 22, but it will likely have a negative impact on the financial statements next year. On page 61, so while we're here doing the financial statement audit, we also have to do a federal compliance audit. Anytime a government spends $750,000 or more in federal funds, you're required to have what's called a single audit. You guys had about $20 million in federal spending this past year. So there's certain requirements that determine what we have to test. But I wanted to point out page 61 and 62 lists every federal grant award that the college has in detail, and it shows the amount that you spent on these two pages. And on page 62, you can see it was about $20.7 million in total federal spending. If you turn to page 64, this is kind of a summary of our audit results from the federal compliance audit. This is called the schedule of findings and question costs. So we had to test 3 programs. If you go about 3/4 of the way down, you'll see these 3 programs: the Student Financial Assistance Cluster, and the Education Stabilization Fund, and then what's called the TRIO cluster, which is your Upward Bound and Student Services. Those are the 3 programs that we tested this year. The federal government issues what's called a compliance supplement, and we are required to look at certain things. And we work with a lot of different offices. Angel Mefford kind of leads the Student Financial Assistance audit. And then the Education Stabilization Fund, we work with the business office quite a bit for that. And then the TRIO cluster was Jeremy Lehman and Taylor Stevenson. So those people got to do a lot of work for us, and everybody is just so helpful when it comes to doing these programs. Like TRIO has to be tested once every 3 years, so they kind of haven't had anyone looking at their stuff that closely. But this past year, everybody was really helpful, and I'm sure they were thrilled that we were auditing those programs. But with all that being said, this report here will list if we have any compliance findings. And as you can see here, hopefully you can see all the no's on the page. That means we did not have any compliance findings to report. This audit report will actually go to the federal government. I'll get with Keith and we'll get this submitted in the next couple of days. But what the federal government does is they look at this and make sure you're having those programs tested as required. And then they will, if there were any findings, they would determine what kind of corrective action they would have. But there are no findings to report, so congratulations. That's always a good thing. And it is very unusual with student financial aid. It's very common. That's a very, lots of tedious things in that program. And we do just do a sample, but everybody at the college does a really good job with that. It's very unusual to not have findings with that program. Okay, the last thing I wanted to go over, if you go to the back of your book, there should be some loose letters back there, and halfway down the page just says new accounting pronouncement. This is our management recommendation letter. So we always like to if we have any recommendations or new accounting pronouncements that will impact the college, this is where you'll find them. I just want to go over the first one. It's called GASB Statement Number 96, and it's subscription-based information technology arrangement. And this is a new standard that will impact the college's fiscal year that you're in now. And it's similar to GASB 87. GASB 87 is just related to capital assets and equipment, but this one is related to software. So if you have software agreements that are multi-year, that you're just paying an annual fee, well, now you have to report that as a right to use asset and also a lease liability over the term of that agreement. I don't know how much that will impact the college's financial statement, but Keith and Diane are supposed to be kind of keeping track of everything that could impact the financial statement, so we can evaluate that and see what needs to be booked next year. And then the other two items they're years down the road, so I won't go over those ones. You still have a couple of years before those have to be implemented. So, okay, that was really fast. Does anyone have any questions about anything? If you don't, Keith and Diane both have my contact information, my email, my phone number. If you ever have any questions throughout the year and want to contact me, I'd be happy to talk to you. But in closing, I also just wanted to let you guys know, we start this audit usually in June. We come do inventory and we kind of start prepping for the audit. And then in October, we're here for 2 weeks. And we just, over the last few months, have still continued to be in contact with the college and making sure we have everything right. And everybody, there's just a lot of people involved in the audit, and it comes out to be a 65-page book that doesn't look like very much. There's a lot of hours that the college employees go through to help us get the information that we need so that we can issue that opinion on your financial statement. So I just want you to know that everyone we come into contact with here is helpful, cooperative, professional, and we really appreciate that.
Seems like, how long have you been auditing? How many years have you audited college?
I have audited 17 years.
How does this year compare in other years of audit? Is this more complicated auditing?
This, like specifically here or in general?
In general,
In general, it's been really tough to be an auditor because of all the federal money, but it's also tough to be in the finance departments of these colleges and school districts and cities. We audit a lot of different types of government, but it has been a big burden on all of the employees that are having to document the use of these federal funds. And then there's a shortage of auditors. So some governments are having trouble finding auditors to come audit this as required. But it is interesting because it is a big burden on the people in the finance office and all over the college, anyone getting this federal money, and you've got to account for it and you're responsible for it. And, the federal government could come in at any time and want to see besides what we audit. And if you don't show them the correct information, they could make you pay that money back. So you've got to be really careful. It's very important.
well, a clean audit does not happen on accident. And it doesn't happen without good processes and systems in place. And it doesn't happen especially without good people. And I'd like to recognize Keith and Diane and Mary and Megan in the foundation, Jeremy and Taylor and Angel and everybody else involved. It was an incredible amount of work. I think this was the most intense audit that we've been involved with at State Fair. I saw Keith's face after some of the, and he had a white tail look and, blank stare. And so congratulations to our staff. For this.
Thank you.
Thank you for mentioning the foundation. They go through a lot of scrutiny from us as well. So Mary and Megan do a really good job, and they were probably frustrated that I was in an office right next to them this year. So it was to get whatever I needed to show. She let me borrow her heater. It was, yeah. She didn't let me do so I believed in her, but she did. She did. Thank you very much. I appreciate that. All right. Well, thank you so much. And like I said, if you guys have any questions or anything, please feel free to reach out.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
All right, so Keith, do you want to say any more before you want to guess?
No, I do want to reiterate, that this is not just the audit, but the statement themselves are very strong financial position. Well, I want to reiterate that, a lot of things went right. A lot of them A lot of them were just to roll the dice a little bit, but a lot of them were things we did too. And so we'll keep it up. You know, I think we're gonna reap the benefits of this as we go forward. We already have in the purchase of another asset here. You know, we've got some things we want to build, but I think this will help us in doing the things that we want to do to grow the college, to benefit the students, benefit the community. And that's why we do this. So I think we've got a strong foundation to do it. So that makes me feel good more than anything. It should make all of us that we can do the things to meet our strategic plan.
Those federal dollars, what is it? What is our normal number on that? 21, almost 21 million this year. And I'm
Well,
sure a lot of that's due to COVID.
Yeah, you know, what pages,
I think it's like 60 something.
I can do a quick look at that, but if you,
I mean, basically, are we looking at the COVID-19
also,
education?
if you look at those, you know, it's like the first one, the student financial assistance cost, that's gonna stay. I mean, that's
Right.
what we get. We get that trio, we get, you know, you got the COVID ones, COVID-19 stabilization funds, that's 5, there's 4, 3, 7, 8, it's almost 8.5 right there.
Right.
It's just COVID. You've got another COVID in the next one. You got another COVID in the next one.
Right.
Another 9.5, so you've got, that's COVID. Then after that, I think you get to the normal stuff after that. So you've got 9.5.
None.
9.5 the number on that.
7, 16. I mean, face it, you got 15, 16, that 20 million. It's COVID.
Right.
So a lot. And there was a lot, you know, there was a lot to look at. And they get pronouncements we want to look at. We don't get those.
Mhm.
We don't know what the government's telling them to look for. It's a bit of a surprise, which they want it to be, so we don't know.
And some of that COVID money will still be in this next.
We'll have more in this year as well, and probably, we may have some in it for the next 3 or 4 years. When we get, the state is passing through some ARPA money. Well, then that lasts through 26, and we just have to keep it on it as well. You know, the state's dispersing, it's still federal money that's being passed through that state, so we're still several years of COVID-related funds in some form or fashion that will be reported on. And like she said, anytime we get more than 750 every year just through Pell Grant, so we'll always get this on it.
Thank you.
All right, so do you want to read that or you want me to? Or
You
recommend it?
have to accept the audit, right?
Well,
No, I
yeah,
guess I
but-
can read
yeah, you
that.
know how you.
She was more formal.
Yeah, yeah.
So, thank you, Rebecca. So, based on that, it's recommended the Board of Trustees accept the audit results of the annual financial report and related information as conducted, prepared, and presented by KPM CPA PC. Wow, a lot of letters. For the year ended June 30th, 2022.
Motion to approve.
I'll second it.
All right, any other questions or discussions? Definitely want to say thank you for your leadership and your team.
Well, you know, I would say, she mentioned the ones that do it. I think that I get to hold up the trophy, so to speak, but there's a lot going on, and people you saw, and, you know, Diane, it all ends up going through her in some form or fashion, you know, Angel, obviously, you know, everyone is, so it's a team effort, and it's a team effort all year. That's what we have to remember. This is not you do it every day. You know, we were talking today, everything, Diane talked, and we was like, let's talk about it. When she leave on it.
Yeah.
So we've got to talk every day about, we're doing so, okay, how's this gonna work for next year? It's what's supposed to, it's supposed to make sense. So, yeah.
All
Appreciate
right,
it.
all in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. Okay, so Keith, the warrant for
Warrant.
November.
So, warrant for November, little bit less than last month, we have been an asset purchase, but we dispersed 3.7 million, 3.7 million. Of that 1.8 that's stable, you see there were no construction, no payments to pros. We still do owe a payment or two to pros. And that will be coming, but for the month of November, there were no payments made for that. Payroll November was a little over $1 million. With income payroll taxes at 200,000, financially and refunds of 5.3. Really to PPA, credit card processing being to discharge, so 3.7 million dispersed.
Motion to approve.
Second.
All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. Okay, institutional reports.
Darcy McPhail is introducing the institutional report today with Judy Riney for an examination of our census demographic.
Pull something up here. Are we sharing screen or?
I don't know.
I don't
Can
know what's most appropriate.
Brad says we can. I don't know technically if we're gonna invest in
We've got Brad here.
it.
So Judy and I are here this evening to talk to you about our 2022 census report. Census is our official enrollment number or reportable number. It's calculated on the 20th day of classes each semester. Hard to like it, my bearings on the. Is the clicker gonna work? Yeah. This the right, this the bar one?
Space bar.
All right. Okay, so our census number for this year, for this fall, this current semester was 3,724. This chart here puts it in a little bit of historical perspective. This goes all the way back to the year 2000. So you can see the flow corresponding with the 2008-2009 recession. We saw a big uptick in enrollment. That's common when there's a recession in the economy and unemployment goes up. People seek opportunities for retraining. They're not working, so they think, well, I'm going to go to school and learn something new. So we generally do see that, and that's the second line down here, the bottom line. That's our unemployment rate in our service area for those same years. And you can see that it follows pretty closely between our enrollment and the unemployment rate. There is an exception here in 2016 where unemployment went down, but our enrollment went up. And that was the year that we added a number of sports teams. So that gave us a little bit of a boost at that time. Now, economists are predicting right now 96% chance that we go into a recession in 2023, or we're already in one. They're debating on that. But in this case, unemployment is staying low. It's staying around the 2 to 3% range. So we're really kind of an uncharted territory. Conventional wisdom says in a recession, unemployment goes up and enrollment in schools go up. But if the unemployment stays down, we really can't predict how the recession is going to affect enrollment. It's just new. It's a whole new ballgame. Would you space bar for me, please? Okay, there we go. So I'm sorry you can't see the heading on there, but this is the 5-year trend for enrollment in our additional locations. That's the HLC term for what we call our other campuses. Clinton, Boonville, LOZ, Eldon, and Whiteman Air Force Base. And try to move this out of the way for you. So you can see their decline corresponds with the decline that we've seen in the last few years overall. One more click for me. All right, so this is the Sedalia campus. It's on a different scale. The numbers are much larger. If I put them all in the same chart, we would have a lot of lines down at the bottom and then a line way up high. So we separated it out, but you can see that's the Sedalia campus enrollment. If you add up the numbers at the end for 2022, you're going to come up a little bit short of the 3724. We do still have a handful of students whose official campus is still online, although we don't offer that as an option for them anymore. They have to pick a physical location. So there's just a handful, I think 18 maybe, who are still considered online. All right, now this is the blue line is our high school market share. We've talked about market share before. It's on our report card and we've reported it every year. That's the number of, or the percentage of students who graduate within our service area who choose to attend State Fair Community College. and it's been on the decline. We've been watching it decrease. The orange line is the national participation rate. It's the number of, the percentage of high school students who enroll in two-year colleges by October following the year they graduate from high school. And that's according to the National Center for Educational Statistics. What I really want you to see here is how similar the lines are. Again, our experience here is not unique. We're following along with the national trend. So at this time, I'm going to introduce Judy Riney. Judy is the Director of Institutional Research. She's the songwriter behind all of this. As I said before, I'm just the front man. So she's going to go into a lot more detail about our current student population based on census. And without further ado, yeah.
All right, I wanted to talk about the students that were here in the fall. And as you can see on this chart, 56% of the students are in College of Academic Discipline, and those are the students that are going to transfer on to another school to continue the education. They have 22% in the Allied Health and 21% in the Career and Technology. And those are the students that are going to get their certificate or degree and then go straight to the workforce. The students, the classes that they take, we had 39% who were taking strictly online classes. And 27% roughly were taking face-to-face in-person classes. And so when Darcy and I went over that, we thought, boy, that 39%, that's kind of high. So if you'll click it one more time, we went and did a history of it. And back in 2016, we had 25% of students who were taking strictly online. And you can see that the big jump there was in 2020. So we're going to blame that on COVID. And so they're just continuing to take them online. And that's why we split there. Go to the, okay. So this is our enrollment by different characteristics. We have our ethnic breakdown. You can see that we have 81% Caucasian white, which for Pettis County, the white is 83%. So it's kind of right in that range. And for our service area, there's a big difference. In Saline County, there's 78% white. And in St. Clair, it's 94% white. So this is just kind of a mixture of our whole service. We have about 50-50 for full-time, part-time. 27% are in our in-tax district area. Another 68% are in Missouri, and a little under 5% for out-of-state students.
On the enrollment
Yes.
by race ethnicity, is our student body reflecting the overall ethnicity within our district and service area?
It reflects almost perfectly with Pettis County. If you take all 14 counties that we serve, we have more non-minority students. Or sorry, we have more minority students than we do in the whole service district.
Okay. And I asked that because there are certain targets that the state may be going, and the fact that we would have a higher rate of traditionally disadvantaged classification of students by ethnic origin is actually a positive in our
Part of the new.
could be a part of our
funding.
could be positive for funding going forward.
And
And
overall, we
And that even if are just matching, that will be positive for funding potentially in the future.
our age group breakdown, the median age in State Fair Community College is 19. Overall, for rural community colleges, that age is 20. And for nationwide, it's 21. So we're kind of fitting right in there. You see our gender, almost 2/3 of our students are female. And here's our money. 48% of our degree seeking students, I'm not counting the non-degree seeking students because they don't qualify for grants. So 48% of those who do qualify received the Pell Grant, over $2 million there. We have the A+, and we have 28% of our 45% were eligible, but once they get their Pell Grant, sometimes if that covers all their fees, then they don't get the A+. And so 28% actually received the A+, and that was 1.6 million. The bottom number is your first generation, and we have 58.7% that are first generation students.
Judy, back on gender,
Yes.
that you mentioned in comparison to rural and national on age. How about for gender? Is that,
I did not check that.
very interesting?
Yeah, but I can look into that and see.
It's close. I know it's close.
I believe it's very close, yeah. It's a leading question. Nationally, national colleges and universities are.
Yes, I know there are more females going to school, but I didn't know there was that big of a difference there. So, since we have 32% of our students are dual credit high school students, I wanted to do some breakdowns on them. And the gender there is 61% female. The majority of them are 17-year-olds. And here are the top 10 high schools where we're getting the students from. Smith Cotton is the largest one, Camdenton, Clinton, and so on.
Now, that's across all sites, right?
Right, and this is just the dual credit high school students. If you go to the next slide, I'll show you what they're taking. And the most popular class that they're taking is the English Comp and General Psychology and Public Speaking. Most of the students only take the one class, that's the blue there in the pie chart. Some of them are taking 2, and we have a section here taking 3 or more classes. So they're the go-getters there. And this is our retention. What we do, and all the schools do this across the nation, we take our first time degree seeking students, and then we're going to track them 1 year later, how many came back or either graduated during that year. And for the most recent number, the retention or graduation rate was 62.2. And we click it one more time, for the last 3 years, it was 60%. So that 62 is something to brag about there. So that's going up.
It's 62% across
It's
the
first time
board,
full-time.
across the board nationally. Oh, 62 is pretty good number.
It is a very nice number. So that's just kind of a snapshot of our current students and how we're doing. If you have any questions or would be interested in a further breakdown.
We have the experts here if you have any questions. Judy also has new glasses that glow in the dark, so we're gonna turn off the light too. Well,
I think the 2% increase in retention is significant. And I know there was considerable effort directed that way, and 2% is a good return on making that an area.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Your department. Okay, so moving to computerized firearm simulator. Pete?
I'll go ahead and bring guest speakers. So, Jim, why don't you explain to them what we've got going on here, and we'll see if they want to get you one.
Basically, we're talking about a very high-tech laser tag kind of system. If you've seen the new simulators in the Commercial Driving Academy, very similar to that. It's a computerized tool, technology, that basically will allow us students to use a very realistic weapon, whether it's a firearm or a baton or mace, to interact with a computer screen and scenarios that'll be shown, and helps them hopefully make a better understanding of what we used to say shoot, no shoot, way back in the day. Is, you know, with all the use of force complaints and stuff we hear about in the news, it teaches them a different way to better understand how, you know, in law enforcement, when you go out to the range, the firearms range, and you shoot at real paper targets all day, you know, you can hit that all the time. But then when you get in real life where you've got stress and innocent people, that's a different login. So that's what this helps do. So it'll provide training for our students. We make it available to local law enforcement agencies to use. We currently have one in our criminal justice program. It's not 10 years old. I bought it when I was teaching, so it's within a technology 10 years a mile down the road. CTC has one that's about 5 years old. So this is just a state-of-the-art replacement to get into the classroom and help our students.
So we put this out for bid. We had one bid come back. It was a good bid.
Yeah.
So it's recommended the board of chiefs accept the bid from Model Virtual out of Ann Arbor, Michigan, for the purchase of one Model Range Pro 4K interactive training simulator. The amount is $54,956. Program. We are funding this 75% enhancement grant and 25% operating budget.
Motion to approve.
So
Any other questions or discussion?
I'm assuming just like any other simulator, I mean, we could upgrade this, like we get software upgrades, like,
Yeah, especially now, compared to 10 years ago, yeah, it's much easier for one to upload, but I mean, this thing comes with thousands of different scenarios. And we could even record our own if we want to use local businesses and right.
Anybody else? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. All right, Jesse, Missouri Area Career Center Opportunity Grant.
well, Eric Ramers decided not to even needs to come to these anymore.
So routine.
It's getting routine. But in all seriousness, he's done a very good job with Bessie in making sure that our CTC program has funding for their portion of the facilities that we're putting in. So we do appreciate that. So this one is an additional grant from the Department of Elementary and Secondary Education. It has been awarded to our CTC program. It's an ARPA grant. It's MACO's, the Missouri Area Career Center Opportunity Grant. We received $400,000, which is the maximum amount available. We have to match 133,333 of that. So if you add those two together, we match 25% of the total amount that needs to be spent. So the grant itself, the requirements are it must be used to create new high-demand emerging programs, enhance current facilities by improving infrastructure, upgrade industry-relevant equipment, and to renovate and/or construct facilities. In this case, we're using these funds specifically for the Center for Advanced Agriculture and Transportation Technologies. That's the building that we put in that these funds will be used in. Good part is we have until December 30th of 2024 to obligate them and say what we're spending them on. And then December 30th, 2026 to get them spent. As with all the ARPA funds, that's the government's timeline on those. So we have plenty of time to get them spent. We'll be putting money into that. So it's recommended to you, to the Board of Trustees, that you authorize the president to accept the ARPA grant described above, and recommended that you also authorize the president or vice president of finance administration to sign any and all agreements related to the ARPA MACO grant.
Motion to approve.
I hear a second.
second,
Any discussion or questions? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. All right, construction manager at risk. Keith, are you going to introduce?
Well, I'm going to introduce Justin, since you probably don't know Justin. Justin's our facilities manager, and then she updates you on where we are with the construction manager at risk project, which is what we're using for our methodology to bring the CAT into being.
So the last time we spoke, we let you know that we had a request for qualifications sent out. We had 6 companies respond to that request for qualifications. The committee, which also includes 2 of your members, so Patty and Justin sit on that committee as well. And we selected 3 companies to then send us or submit to us a request for proposals and to come and do an interview with us. So those interviews happened last week. We sat in this room and they presented their company to us. We did specifically ask that they bring a project executive, their chief estimator and superintendent of the projects to us, so that we were not seeing just marketing folks in those presentations. We were actually seeing the people that we would be working with, and that would be working on the during the pre-construction services to do our estimation, and then the people that would be working on the ground with us. Those presentations went really well. So those presentations were done by Septagon Construction here in Sedalia, Naples Construction Services out of Columbia office, I believe, right? And River City Construction Services out of the Ashland office. Naples is a national, they're in about 7 states. River City has, I believe, 2 offices. The office here in Ashland, Missouri, and one in Peoria, Illinois. And then you guys are familiar with Septagon and their many offices across Missouri and Iowa. So what the committee has met this week to talk through those proposals, talk through our evaluations, and we have some more questions that we want to pose to those companies. And so because of the holiday and the timing of everything, we are going to bring those questions back. That committee is going to ask those questions to those companies, and the plan would be then from then our evaluations can be completed, and we will bring a recommendation to you in the January board meeting, potentially even a contract at that point. It kind of depends on how it all lays out, but we'll definitely bring a recommendation to you. That recommendation will be basically approval to expend funds for pre-construction services, which would get us started. We can contract with them, get them engaged with our design, SAP design, and get that integration process started, which is what the CMR project is designed to do. After that, then later on is when we will actually come to a GMP or guaranteed max price. That contract would come to you guys as well for the actual completion of the CAT building. Any questions in that process and where we're at?
In terms of the project, making this decision in January will not delay it. The architects still have to meet with faculty in January, after the faculty return in January, to iron out some design stuff before the construction manager would be involved. So really a January board meeting approval fits right in.
And in the big scheme of things, we still have some flexibility in our long range timeline of it.
Justin or Patty, do you have anything to add?
You did an excellent job, and thank you so much. Yeah,
Thank you.
thank you for the update.
So no action, no recommendation, no action.
Okay, so then we'll move to the trustee emeritus candidate, Dr. Bates.
Recently, the Board of Trustees established a Board of Trustees emeritus status to honor longtime service, distinguished service trustees. That is outlined in policy. There are specific processes to take for that. And we had one former board member nominated through that process. So we have received 2 letters of endorsement for former SFCC trustee and board president, Mr. Len Leighton. He meets the qualifications. He served on the board for 12 years, from 2010 to 2022. The final 6 years as board president. So Paul Seek requires that the board take action on that, and then we would propose honoring, if you should choose Mr. Eaton as a trustee emeritus at the end of year retirement celebration with the college when we get other.
So moved. All right, and we welcome one trustee emeritus with us. Jerry Greer is with us, so we're glad to have him.
Who also presented one of the letters of
That is,
recommendation.
yes. So we thank you for those letters. Any other questions on that? If not, ready to vote, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Post same sign. Okay, Dr. Bates.
All right, I've asked, we've been working on a project with Lincoln University to co-locate on their campus and offer some programs. So I've asked Dr. Murders, who's our lead on that project, to give us an update on that.
So we've talked about the census and how important enrollment and retention, and of course, we get there a lot of times through expansion, and with the 14 county area, we know we haven't been on the Jefferson City in a while, so that's what this is about. It's a partnership with Lincoln University in order to have a concurrent admissions program. So it's a 2+2. So the goal would be for State Fair Community College students to earn either their Associates of Arts, at least to begin with, or the Associate of Arts in Teaching. Those are the most generic, simple to get started with, and then we can talk about other things after that. But as they're working and as students, State Fair Community College students, they could potentially, or they would take these courses on Lincoln University campuses. So we'd have space there. They would also then have the ability to potentially live there. So I'll talk about that a little bit in a moment. But so our target is working with them is probably about 50 students. That's about what they potentially would want to give up. And there's some rationale to that. And again, that's on the high end. They would like less, but we're kind of guessing at what those students, and the rationale, the reason is it's who the students are. Students are going to be the ones who are probably, for them, underprepared to meet their admission standards. So what do we do well? We remediate and do those things and prepare students. So we can do that for them and take advantage of exposing them to State Fair and all our student success activities and services to do that. And or it could be students who decide they'd rather go to State Fair, use A+, still have that connection as we market this. So I think we'll see that part grow a little later. And finally, they may not even be underprepared, but they may have admitted late. And so Lincoln has a bridge program, summer bridge, not to get too detailed, but if they miss the deadlines, they want them in Lincoln, but they can't because of the way they're doing their student success. They can't accept them. So we could take them and again, be State Fair community. They would have that option and again, take courses with us, earning towards their Associates of Arts and continue in that direction. So that's kind of the students, but also we want to take advantage of that since we're in Jefferson City. We want to work with the school district and offer dual credit. And what we would then do, and once this is done, is work with them to bring those students there as well. So that's after we can kind of get this MOU done. That's one of the next steps that I want to mention. So it's got a lot of potential there of adding dual credit and serving them. And they want us to serve them. So we've got some work to do there. So the student benefits, as I was talking about, ability to remediate and get them up and hopefully more of the student success programs such as TRIO and so forth, housing and other university activities. So students can be pretty much feel like a 4-year student, but be part of State Fair. They're still using A+, other scholarships, potentially those type of things that they might not be eligible for. And with this 2+2, when they transfer, because they still technically would transfer, they're eligible for transfer scholarships and things. So if they really look at the financial side, this could be a big deal for a lot of students. There'll be some advising from both institutions and things like that. So there's we're working on plans how to advise, use our Navigator model in addition to some of their advisements. And another thing we don't think of much, some of these students will leave us before they graduate. We just know that, and maybe vice versa. But what we are also setting up is adding reverse transfer. So we have a student that's had enough credits with us. They go to Lincoln before they earn their degree with us. Well, they will, if they continue on, be successful, they will earn the credits and we can reverse transfer those back to us and award them associates because we will have, will have put enough skin in the game. We get those as a completer. So that will help with FTEs and with completion, potentially with the future funding model. That's a big deal. So we're thinking about those type of things as we move forward as well. The challenges we always have is Title IV, Pell Grant. When you deal with 2 schools and you're trying to deal with that, who's the host school? So right now, the goal is we would be that host school. They would take, if not all, the majority of their credits with us. But that still means our financial aid has to deal with their financial aid. We would be dealing with payment issues if they're living in their housing. So we're working through some of those things. We have ideas, but we're going to be bringing the experts to the table, obviously. Admission processes, for instance, they're going to admit through them. If they recommend they come to us, the way they send a letter, it's not going to be, oh, sorry, you got to go to state fair. It's got to be a very positive way, but also the admissions process. They provided all this data. How do we not force them to duplicate everything? And at first, we may have to do some of that, but those are the kind of growing things. And that kind of goes into our IT. We work on different systems and so forth. So passing that data back and forth, we've got folks that are going to have to look at how we can do that. And again, it will be, the expectation is we'll probably do a lot of things more manually than we'd like to at first, but hopefully with a smaller number of students, we can perform some of those things, learn from it. And as Dr. Porter continues to fix our admissions processes that we're going through and doing the work here, that's paying dividends for our extended campuses, which this would be. So again, tuition with 2 schools, housing, payments, all those things, I mentioned those. So what's the next steps? We got to complete the MOU. We've got a good draft. Dr. Bates was in on a meeting the other day, but we still got those challenges I mentioned with FAFSA admissions and payments. So we're having some working groups. I think there's 5 set up, came out today. We set up 5 working groups over the next first few weeks in January. So as soon as everybody gets back, we'll have our admissions folks working with theirs. We'll have our Title IV people working with theirs and try and get all these little things worked out. We'll be then hopefully having the president sign sometime in February. That's a goal. But with that comes marketing and recruiting, how we're going to do this, the 2 Marcoms working together, what space they're going to give us and how much. So we're still, going through those things. HLC approval, every extended campus, as Darcy mentioned, but she's already reached out and she's already greased those wheels. That shouldn't be a holdup at all. We've got some emails back, so we're very pleased about that. We'll be talking about the budget implications. More people, what kind of revenue we expect to get back, those type of things. So we have that meeting next week. What staff are we going to put in place? And of course, the academic schedule and offerings. We want to do that, and we're still working on how many students we're going to get, how many teachers can we hire, working with them, do we use their teachers, and those things. So, and finalizing all the student services that are needed, working with their trio, all those good things that you would do with the extended campus. So it sounds like a lot to do. A lot of things we do already. It's just ensuring they get put in place. So maybe as long as that laundry list sounded, we do those things every day. As you know, you saw, about our other extended campuses. So we got to work to get a new one put in place and work through it. So this is going to be a great model. And then we can, this is not unique or the first time it's ever happened, but it's rare. And to be successful is even more rare. So we're really hopeful that it will kind of be a state model. Questions?
When do you anticipate, or what would be the goal of when this program begins?
Ideally this fall.
In the fall?
Yes. HLC won't be our holdup. It will be the logistics of just between the 2 schools and our schedules, getting space, getting instructors, Jim's going to be struggling, what classes do we put on? How do we find the instructors? Is our admissions going to go? Our folks are it's going to be a lot of quick stuff, but fall, yes, ma'am. We've got to shoot for fall. We can't afford to miss a year with that. And then with that comes the dual credit side. So we want to tag right along. So it's going to be very compressed, but it's still very doable.
Is the dual credit possible this fall?
Yes, we're going to try. Now, it may not be at the level we want to. It may be we may not. My gut tells me, honestly, that we may not get them on Lincoln this first year. I may have to figure out how to offer them dual credit at the schools just to really get started until we iron out some things at Lincoln, maybe worst case, but then bring them on. I've talked to them about that, but they're really anxious to see that possibility because they want their students to earn AAs. before they graduate. And not every school wants that, so we've got to be able to provide that. But that in itself allows a lot more similar classes. And so even if we don't get that whole 50, we're hoping we get, dual credit will provide a huge number of students.
Basic English composition can work for a dual
Yes,
credit.
exactly. You saw those lists, that list. Yes, that's our AA up there. All those courses are part of the 442. Yes, sir.
Just looking at the numbers from the earlier report,
Mhm.
the Cotton 125
Yeah.
dual credit in Jeff City Public School District is about
Yeah, they have
60% larger.
they have two high schools that they would be sending to.
About 1,800.
And they're very happy to
2,000
bus them and everything. So we've had some talks there. So it may not be huge that first year. We'll see. I mean, I'd like to tell you it'd be bigger than that, but
Well,
and the potential it will be to be successful. Yeah, we should pass that.
Questions?
Thanks, sir.
Thank you, Dr. Mers. Dr. Mers is the lead, but just about everyone in the room, except for
Yes.
maybe Jerry, Greer, and Sky, are going to be involved in this project or have been involved in the project, so.
Okay with that.
Well,
Couple other quick things. At your desk is a copy of our FAST Facts. This is our legislative advocacy booklet that we use. And if you look at the back of the booklet, there are breakdowns by county on the impact of State Fair Community College. And I want to compliment Brad, his team, Darcy, and Judy on the IR side. That's been a wonderful process. We concluded our legislative advocacy at bids. We had 10 legislators attend. Jolynn Turley, recognize her for setting those up. She and I met today. We're planning follow-up meetings or meetings with those that didn't attend. And so it was I think a very successful start for that. It says fast facts, but it's very detailed. I don't know if you can fastly, but we may have to
You didn't
think
do
of a
that very
new
fast.
title for that. We gave the census numbers. Fall semester ended last week. Grades we hope to have grades processed by noon tomorrow. It looks good. I want to compliment all of the folks that are involved in getting the semester up and running now, completing the semester. It really truly takes a whole team, and people worked incredibly hard, and I appreciate that. So I can't believe the fall semester is over already. So it's crazy, and we're hot and heavy in getting students enrolled for the spring semester. We have a little bit more time this year as we're starting after Martin Luther King Day. So that enrollment initiative, Dr. Porter, we appreciate that. Finally, I had a Christmas gift for you at the table. I was chit-chatting with a board member earlier who talked about not everyone has sweets. Traditional sweets are for Christmas presents, but not all those sweets. I'm not a baker. I'm a barbecuer. So you got deer sausages for your presents. So it's non-traditional approach. You can thank English here, especially. And that's my report.
Thank you, Dr. Bates. And yeah, I can't believe, you've got your first semester behind you.
You couldn't believe I made it through a
I
semester.
know, I can't. Well, maybe that's it. All right, Keith, you want to give financial report?
Financial reports in your book, there's nothing particularly remarkable in it, truthfully. November is a fairly slow month, but I thought I'd take this time and talk a little bit more about maybe audit into a little more of a, help us understand kind of where it fits in historical context, take those numbers and put them into as best I can layman terms, if you're okay with that. I've got two handouts I just got finished prior to the meeting, sorry you don't have them, but those who've been here before, you've seen one answer there. I'm going to pass each of them each direction, so that way they'll kind of get to each other.
This is different than what we had with that.
Yes, you don't have it. I just got these.
This is Keith's version of the audit.
Oh,
Yeah, my version of explaining the audit. I haven't had the audit much longer than you have. Let's start with the larger one that has the most on it. It's reconciled financial performance. What I try to do is take the audit numbers and take out the things or reconcile them to the things that we don't have a lot of control over, or that don't necessarily fit the way our business model is. For instance, the GASB pension things that are completely of our control. They're non-cash. They're a non-cash item, just like depreciation, then put back against some of our debt payments. I try to say, from an operational standpoint, how do we really do when you cut it all down? And I'm taking this back to 2016, so you'll see some. Let me just go with the 2022 column. The first column, 2022, the first 5 lines, which says 1 audit statements. If you were to open up the audit statement, the audit book to the back, you would see these are the numbers you'll see in there. You'll see operating revenues of 26.7, operating expenses of 44, operating loss of 17, and you see our net change in net position of 9.6 million. You can look historically. Historically, that number has been negative, if you'll notice. So what we did, I tried to reconcile these because it's not real fun to see basically you lost money every year is what it says. Now, beginning in 2021 and 22, we've had positive, and that really is because of some of the influx of COVID funds. But the more common occurrence, and it will become more common again as we go forward, is that we'll see a negative position on the audit. But that doesn't say how we really did. So after that, I then go back in, GASB 68.75. Let me tell you what they're doing. 68 is the one where we have to share our share of the PSRS, basically underfunded pension plan. It's what that is. That we are members of it. So if they're only funded for 80% of the pensions, we take our fair share of the 20% unfunded as a liability on our books. And that's almost always a negative. You'll see most years I have to add that back. This I'll be subtracting it out. That's usually usually a number around, number of 2 million or so the wrong way. The other one, GASB 75, is the other pension. It's basically post-employment pension benefits. If we have retirees that stay on our medical plan or stay on our dental plan or whatever, we have a long-term actuarial obligation to them that typically goes up every year as well. This year it went down. So in this case, I actually subtract away from how we did because it went kind of in our favor. Whereas before you say always added that back into the negative number. So after you take out the GASB reconciliations, you'll see we were made, still 6.7 is good, but again, most of the time the college was negative in prior years. Depreciation, since we're not a tax-paying entity, depreciation for us really doesn't do anything for us. I mean, we're not having to pay for taxes. We're paying for that asset in terms of our actual payment plan. So I will add that depreciation back in. So you see the type of depreciation we have every year is in the $2.5 million range. And then I'll go ahead and say, but we do have to make debt service payments, which is not a typical income statement. You don't put debt service payments in the income statement. You put your depreciation, you put your interest. I put that back in because that's a cash value. So really, what it does for me when you go to the very bottom, it says reconcile compared to financial performance. That tells me, for the most part, how we operated the college that year based on the things we can control and the actions we take. And you see, for the most part, except for 26 of this, we typically end up positive. What it tells me is we're being good stewards of the money we have control of and the way that we're going about doing things, the way we're budgeting, the way we're managing budget. Obviously, this year and last year were substantially strong years in that regard, with a number of factors coming into play for that. But so apples to apples, that line tells you on the same level of basis how each year does with this. So that just gives you an idea of the strong year we had last couple of years and the reason we can do some of the things we're building right now, honestly. So that's that. Then going down, as they say, but it's that's all fine and good, but what do you put in the bank? So now I started looking at the cash. cash, I always want to caution everybody, cash is a point in time. This cash is looked at as of June 30th of the end of the audit year. This year on June 30th, because of some monies we got advanced to us from the state, some of our mold sales money, some other things, we had a very strong cash balance starting it, but it's money we're spending now because the state had to give it to us. So there is, again, it's a point in time, but at the end of June 30th, 2022, we had a cash balance of $10.4 million. That's actually down from last year because we put some in investments. You can see the cash balance of the years 2016 through, through now, what it's done, but a very strong cash balance. And then the second one says investments, okay? Then at that point in time, what were investments? So we took some cash from 2021. You notice in 2021, we had all cash and no investments. At the June 30, 2020, June 30 of this year, in addition to $10 million in cash, we had $9 million in investments. Those are fixed term investments, CDs, treasury bills, those things. So our total, number 3 there, our total cash and investments balance was $19.5 million. Not that now, we spent some of it and also some of it is a very, very strong. Again, you can see the progression of the cash and investments balance over the years, substantially up from the prior years. The other thing I always can ask, okay, so what's our reserve? And reserve is one of those, how do you define reserve? I have chosen to define reserves, but just from my standpoint of what makes sense to me. I take the cash and investments and I subtract out all our current liabilities. So if you go in the audit book, you'll see the current liabilities, which is everything we owe now and any debt we have due coming in the next year. So it basically says, what do you have what's obligated? So I do that to kind of get a feel for on a consistent basis in the year, what's my cushion kind of look like? And I do it the same way every year. I disagree with it, but at least it stays the same. But I think it's a very good measure of net reserve. So you'll see there, really, we had a cushion about $15 million at the end of the year in net reserve, and that's gone up as well. So just to give you a way to understand what is all in here on one piece of paper compared to the years to see how we're doing. And usually I do it to show that the negative numbers you see are not really negative numbers, that we are operating above, most, have historically continued to operate the college on a fiscally responsible basis, what we want to do. Any questions there on anything? I know it's a lot. Thank you. The other sheet, I did this different. I pulled out some key measures. We talk a lot about, our 3 main sources of revenue are tuition and fees, state appropriations, and property taxes. And our main expense is people. And I just kind of want to pull out and show you what that looks like over the years and how we're doing on it, because just so you get a feel for, I call them, those are our 3 key revenues. Everything else is really, a lot of it is the grants and things, but so if you look at tuition and fees in FY22, we had $16.5 million in tuition and fees. And if you look back to FY 2016, that's really not gone up a tremendous amount in the last, 6 years, from 15.8 in 2016 to 16.5 now. It's really 700,000 tuition fees has gone up, as a revenue in that bit of time. You can see the progression, and we got that going pretty good till FY 2020. We're working to get back to that. And that has to do with enrollment, has to do with what we charge that. So just to get a feel for that. Next is state appropriations. You'll see what state appropriations have done over the years. You see this year, while it's great at 7.7, they got us back just barely to we were in 2017. And that's been the challenge of some of the funding of community colleges over the years. So we hope that the trend continues up for us, but we had a big jump. We had a big jump from 2016-17 and a big jump from 2021. So you can get a feel for that. And then property taxes, you'll see more of a normal kind of little bit each year incline, but that gives you a feel for what we've received from those 3, really the 3 key revenue sources that we have. It used to be the 3-legged stool that was all part of it. And you get a feel for how much, I think the percentage, you can let yourself see what percentage each of those tends to be if you were to take a total of that. There was a time when we would hope they were all equal. You see that the increasing burden on the tuition fees. And they did the same for salaries and benefits for the same time period. Again, over time, while our big three revenues have gone up about 700,000, our compensation's gone from 18.6 to about 20.1, so about $1.5 million, so about double that. So our salaries are increasing more than those revenues on the same time. And I guess for fun of it, I did a ratio at the bottom, and I just wanted to look and see what's the ratio of salaries and benefits to those three main things. You see a fairly consistent band there. Around 70%, give or take. It was a little higher in fiscal year 26. Fiscal year 16 was the only year we were negative in the reconciled financial performance. That tells me I can't get much more than about 70% on my ratios there. I'm gonna, historically. That was it was eye-opening for me to see that. So that's why I did. I just looked at it. So that's information for you. I'm not asking, but to understand more, so you understand, what we pay in salaries, what's occurred over time, what we get from the various sources of revenue we talked about, and have a perspective of what that's done over time as well. So as we go forward with budgeting and looking at things to go forward, you have some context of what you see. Questions or discussion, anything I can do on the audit, anything else? Not? Well, how do you get on with the meeting?
Good information.
Good information. Okay, so board discussion. Anybody have anything in mind? We know we went to MCCA conference in St. Louis. Great turnout, with State Fair Community College represented very well. So commend all of those who were able to attend, and we had some nominees for some different awards, good sessions to attend. Anybody have any take on any of those that they'd like to share?
Keith won a train.
Oh, that is true. Keith won a
And
train,
it's,
and
and it's in the Toys for Tots bucket right outside. There's one other poor little toy sitting.
I know I attended some things on HLC. And so for those who don't know, we've kind of shared with Dr. Bates that, being new on the board, you may not know what HLC is, the Higher Learning Commission. And I know that Darcy's the one that kind of takes the lead on that. So we've asked that we have a little bit more information on that as time goes along, because if we are getting into the cycle, we're going to do an evaluation that they'll do on that. So that was kind of, the one thing that I can remember is those HLC sessions that I went to. But seeing a lot of others from other campuses is always good. Anybody else?
One of the focuses of the meeting was on enrollment management. And sort of the talking point was to be clear, concise, and that all your processes cooperate with each other, that there be good transition from application to admission to financial aid to housing, to that there be strong connections in place, and that the contact be continuing. So it was more of a matter of asking the questions that as we evaluate our processes, are we meeting those goals of being concise and clear, and making it easy to move from, I think I might want to attend State Fair, to graduating from State Fair. Are we do we have continuity getting us there?
Yes, please. One of our long-term past employees has recently passed away. I don't know how many of you knew Sue Branson. She was the secretary. I'm going to make sure I have this right. She started here in 68 through 95. Let's see.
So she would have been almost a day one employee.
Yes, she was the secretary for the academic dean. Her office is over in the Yater So, I got to spend very, very little time, but I saw her every day, it seems like. And, she was.
When you were in trouble going to the.
Just passing by. She liked her turquoise jewelry, so if you made a comment, she'd puff up a little bit. But Gary, I know you served with her, so do you have any comment you'd like to have on the record?
She's a fantastic lady. Real Roadrunner supporter.
She and her husband were both Roadrunner athletic fans. She went to all of the basketball games and supported the college in that way and in other ways as well. So we're gonna miss Sue very much. So thank you for bringing that forward.
One other thing, I've talked to, mentioned Dr. Bates, but I'd like to have a physical tour of the farm. And we thought we might wait till a warmer day.
Not this week.
Probably not this week, just to see where things, we've talked about where things are, but it's nice just to get out and see where things are. And we talk about, we potentially need this here or this there or this there, and to be able to sort of physically see where some of those, what might be dedicated, what space might be dedicated to what items. So I'm sure that if anybody else is interested,
Sure, if you
Dr.
want
Bates can make that.
experience, go today.
Tomorrow, I do have four-wheel drive on my pickup.
That's a farm experience.
So I thought I would throw out a couple of dates and, everybody can't fit in the cab of the pickup at the same time. But, then we'd have a public meeting as well. So, but a couple of days, and if you're interested, we'll go take a little tour of the farm.
That'd be awesome. Anybody else?
Just a couple. I noticed work was being done out here this last week. Holland Excavating was out here working. What was that in reference to?
It was just to add a drain tile. After doing the asphalt work, we ended up with a high section there. So we had a storm tile drain already underneath there already. So we just tapped into it, and Holland does some on-call stuff for us. So.
And then I saw that little question.
Was that the boom truck or whatever you call it?
No.
No, that's a separate thing. So that's where you're going next. The crane was sitting out front of Stockford for the last few days. They were setting the iron that will go the screen around the makeup air units for the kitchen hood systems. And one of those makeup air units was set up on the roof as well. So there's some nice shiny stainless steel sitting up there, and then the structural steel that will eventually be clad. So that was placed up there for the phase one side.
And that project is continuing on right on schedule.
Yep.
Well, we noticed, or at least I noticed your progress.
I mean, how could you miss the crane? I heard from different people. It was the crane at the college.
I didn't know what it was.
You know, we just wanted to put a decoration out there.
I wanted.
Thank you.
All right, anything else? We definitely want to say a very Merry Christmas to all before we go into a closed session. So enjoy your mini vacation, so to speak. It's not a lot of time, but take that time to, enjoy family, time off. And we look forward to seeing you in January of 2023.
And please feel free, please take a cookie or two with you,
Yeah,
because otherwise,
so Richard brought cookies. I have a little.
otherwise they will be mine.
She will be, yeah, we've got to make sure that we really.
Limit my consumption.
That little anti-snack bucket, and so be sure to take one of those on your way out. I would entertain a motion to go into closed session for lease, purchase, or sale of real estate pursuant to RSMO section 610.0212, and for hiring, firing, disciplining, or promotion of personnel pursuant to RSMO section 610.0213. Right, roll call please.
Amy Shears? Yes. Justin Adams?
Yes.
Richard Parker?
Yes.
Tim Carr?
Yes.
Tom Alden?
Yes.
Tricia Wood?
Yes. Safe travels if you're going very far or even if you're not. So,
We don't let moss grow under our rolling.
I'll gladly take it.
Well, thank you for getting that going. Appreciate that. Yeah, thank you.
Yes, it is.
Absolutely.
Yep.
Oh, I forgot to say something about the book, and then I guess we're all good for this.
Good evening.
So I think I'll get to the airport on my own, going to Washington.
And I haven't arranged it yet, but I will.
See you. Shuttle or the hotel has a shuttle.
Glitter. No, they're all like.